Hi, this is Kiana Miner. Welcome to the Crazy Courage webinar, where we are busting success myths and learning how to live more courageously. Today, I'm so excited to have Alex Russell on the call today. She is just amazing. I actually went to high school with Alex, and now Alex is the founder of Urban Light. Urban Light is an organization that raises awareness about boys who are victims of trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation. Her Urban Light Youth Center is based in Thailand, and it focuses on rebuilding, restoring, and empowering the lives of boys they serve. So thank you so much for being here, Alex. I know you're in Thailand, so I really appreciate you taking the time out to do this.
Hi, Kiana. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be a part of this incredible webinar and to hopefully share my story.
Awesome, awesome. So if we could just, I guess, dive right in, could you just tell us a little bit about how you came to start Urban Light and a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. So you are right. You and I did go to high school together. And all my life, I've really had a desire to serve and a desire to be a part of a greater movement. And I didn't realize that that movement would happen when I turned 28 and would happen as a result of just this powerful encounter that I had in Thailand, as a result of really experiencing human trafficking firsthand through an organization I worked with in DC. I was quickly exposed to the plight of many at-risk youth, in particular one young girl who became one of my students, and one day just suddenly went missing. And at this time, I'd never really heard of the word human trafficking. I had never been exposed to the issue of modern day slavery. It was something that was entirely new to me. And when this young girl went missing, there was something about the situation that really sat uneasy with me. We went to police, and the police didn't have any form of concern either. You know, they pretty much waved their hand and said, oh, well, she's a 15-year-old girl. You know, she's more than likely run away with her boyfriend. So what do you expect us to do? And so it really became something that I had to take into my own hands. And realizing that social media was too huge, we were able to take a picture from Facebook and put pictures all over DC. So in the stations, around the school, in restaurants, really try to canvass the area, try to gather awareness about the fact that the 15-year-old was missing. And luckily, that really stirred up some discomfort with the traffickers in North Carolina. And lo and behold, about two days later, this young girl reappeared in my classroom, and it was not the same girl that I'd seen just a few days before. She had lost a tremendous amount of weight. She looked just completely out of the norm, just into tears. And through those tears, we were able to get the story of the plight and the absolute trauma that she went through, experiencing this trip from Washington, D.C. to North Carolina. And that was really the first moment that I realized that modern-day slavery existed. It was the first moment I realized that there are so many youth that are at risk of exploitation and human trafficking. And it really became my mission to educate not just myself, but educate my community, to be a representative advocate for this young girl that had seen firsthand what her story did to her and what that experience did to her life path. And so that really put me on this path of educating myself, awareness, and which would eventually take me to Thailand to learn more about the issue of trafficking as it relates to boys.
Okay, yeah, that's an amazing story. So you have this experience with this girl, and then you go to Thailand and kind of see firsthand what's going on with the boys. How do you jump from sort of feeling like, okay, I need to serve these people in some way, to actually starting an organization? I mean, that takes a lot of courage. How do you make that jump?
Absolutely. Really, the whole creation of Urban Light started so organically. And if you had told me 5 years ago that I would be running an organization, one of the only organizations in Thailand addressing the issue of trafficked boys, I would have really never considered that. First of all, I'm from Argentina, America, and so the likelihood of me ever going to Southeast Asia and starting something was highly unlikely. But what I often say is that when you find that calling, when you find that purpose, when you find that movement that you want to stand behind, it often just kind of falls into place. And that's exactly what happened for me. I came to Thailand as part of a volunteer trip. I was supposed to be here 2 weeks, and then I was supposed to go back home to my job in DC, working with teen girls. And it so vividly happened one evening, walking through the streets of Chiang Mai, where I came across a whole group of vulnerable young boys that I realized, oh my gosh, this is not just an issue that affects young girls in Washington, D.C. This is an issue that affects young girls in Thailand, in India, Latin America, in Europe, all over the world. But even more so, this is an issue that affects men and boys. And that for me was my aha moment. That for me was that moment where I thought, gosh, here I am standing with a college education. I've read and poured myself over so many books, so many documentaries, and yet I never realized that this was an issue that affects young boys. And so standing there in that street, looking into a bar full of young boys who could have been 11 years old, 12 years old, amongst men that could have been my community leaders, my dentist, my uncle, my father, men that looked like men from my community, was just an utter shock to me and entirely unacceptable. Yet I was, a 28-year-old who had never been to Thailand. What in the world was I supposed to do? And so I often say that, the Good Samaritan story flashes through my mind, because you think, okay, are you going to stop and actually try to do something, or are you going to keep walking? And that night I kept walking. I walked right by that 12-year-old boy sitting on that man's lap. I walked right by the 10-year-old boy selling roses, and that pang of guilt, still haunts me. But what the reality was that I did end up going back to those bars that night, and I did end up going and sitting down with those boys, and I did allow them to share their stories with me. And through their stories, they gave me the courage. I often say they became my mentor. They became my teacher to empower me so that I could start something such as Urban Light. So, I find it interesting that this, the title of this webinar, because oftentimes I feel as though I'm really not the courageous one. I'm just the vehicle for what these boys have envisioned and what they desire. And so over the past 4 years, Urban Light has become not what I want it to become, but what the boys have really envisioned for themselves, and how they want to empower themselves.
Oh, wow. That's really amazing. And I think it's amazing that what you said about not knowing that there were young boys involved, because honestly, until you started Urban Light and started your awareness, I didn't know either. It was such a shock to me that this was also a population of people affected by human trafficking. And I thought I was pretty educated about it. So,
and you're not alone, Piana. I promise you, you are not alone. You make up a huge population of people. Majority of people have no idea that this happens to boys. And, that's why I feel so honored to
you broke up
and raising awareness on
Did you feel such an honor to what?
This vulnerable and invisible population. To be an advocate and an ambassador for this vulnerable population of boys. So I'm excited to be able to share with all of your listeners and audience.
Yeah, I am too. Alex, have you had to stand up against any type of backlash from starting this organization? Because your building is it in the red light district or close to it?
Yeah, so Urban Light, we started in the heart of the district. Okay, so regarding as far as we've had any backlash, I often say that I've been so lucky and so fortunate to have an incredible, courageous group of boys that protect me with the work that I do. So I've been really fortunate to not have to experience any backlash from traffickers or from bar owners. A lot of what we do at Urban Light is building relationships, and that means building relationships with the boys we serve, but also building relationships with the bar owners, with the traffickers themselves, with the customers themselves. And part of that is what's kept me safe, is that we don't claim to go in and rescue the boys. What we really do is we empower and we restore the boys through education, employment, and alternative opportunities. So we're not really threatening the businesses of these bar owners and traffickers. They know that we're there to support the boys. So luckily, we've been very fortunate to not have to deal with any backlash.
Okay. I love your approach because it sounds so compassionate. And I know you've been kind of in this issue for the last, 5 years. So that compassion, because when I think about the issue, it makes me so angry. And the first thing I get angry at are the establishments or the customers. You know what I mean? How do you develop that compassion where you can say, okay, we're really building relationships with everyone because we kind of need the buy-in of everyone in order to really make a change?
Absolutely. And believe me, I have really good days and I have really bad days.
Okay.
And on my really bad days, I want to punch every single client in the face, to be quite candid. But the reality is that I recognize that these men that come here with the entire intention of exploiting these boys and engaging in sexual activity with the boys we serve, they're just as much in need of support and services as well. You know, they have something that they are not able to control, something that they are hurting, they're suffering, and they need restoration. They need to be restored. And so I recognize that it's as much of a problem for the demand side as it is for the boys that we serve. And so the compassion gap really has to be molded so that I can provide the services that we provide to the boys. But I recognize there's another organization that needs to exist to support the men that come here, because they definitely need just as much support, if not more, than the boys that we serve.
Okay, wow, yeah, that's amazing that you can come to that realization. And I think you're
right.
right.
But it's definitely hard, Kiana.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
I'm not claiming that it's not.
No, yeah, I would imagine so, yeah, but I do, I agree with you, and I could totally understand that even to engage in that activity, on some level, they have to be victims themselves. So, yeah, that's definitely an enlightened perspective to have about it. When you first started Urban Light, I was listening to another interview you did where you talked about, trying to raise money to get it started, and you sold like your wedding ring and pretty much anything that you could get your hands on in order to start the organization. Can you talk about that and sort of the drive or the determination you had to get it going?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I've always been called is stubborn, and when I want something, I work extremely hard to get there. And when I created that first relationship with Oi in the bars, it became evident that something had to be done, and I really needed to do something to start a movement. And so when I met Oi, he really pushed me to see the vision of what Urban Light could become and how we could impact the lives of these boys. And and so after I spent 4 hours in the bars that first night talking with Oi, hearing his dreams, hearing why he came to the city, and how he had lost his family and all the expectation that was placed on his frail shoulders, I thought, this can't be. And it represented so much of the other boys' lives. And so I did. I ended up going home. I was here for 2 weeks in Thailand, and I ended up going home 7 days later and declaring to my husband that I wanted to start something in Thailand to rescue all the boys out of the bars that I went to. And, I was so naive at the time, and all I wanted to do was to help these boys out of those bars, because all I had in my mind was the pictures of these young, vulnerable kids surrounded by these Western men. And, first thing I did was make an excuse, but I don't have any money. And my husband looked at me and he said, well, that's not true. And I said, no, it's true. I work at an NGO. I don't have any money. How do you expect me to go to Thailand to start, an entire organization? It's not possible. And he quickly looked down at my hand and saw my engagement ring and my wedding ring and said, well, you're making excuses because you could always go and pawn your wedding ring and your engagement ring and use that money to start the organization. And at the time, I had no idea there were, things such as Kickstarter or things such as, angel investors. And so that's what I did. I went and I sold my wedding and I sold my engagement ring. And I remember bartering as hard as I could with the pawn shop dealer and begging him to give me just a little bit more for it. And I took that money, which was about $6,000, and I took it with me back to Thailand. So about 4 months after I got back from Thailand, I quit my job at the NGO that I loved and adored, and I bought a one-way ticket to Thailand. And it was that money that was the biggest blessing for me because I could use that money to really start a movement that mattered. And with that, we started our first first staff member, and I just remember walking back to the bars, praying and hoping and just, thinking, oh my gosh, is Oi going to even be there? It's pretty absurd. I've quit my job. I've left my community. I've come to a country where I don't know the language. I don't know the laws. And it ended up working, and I've never been more grateful for the idea to sell my wedding ring and the support that both my family, my husband, Oi, and the community gave to me. Because it is very much in the effort, and I recognize that. It's not just me doing all this for myself. It's been the support of everyone around me.
Okay. And he was there. He was at the bar when you got there, wasn't he?
Who's that? Yes, he was. So Oi was one of the first boys that I saw walking back down the seedy street behind all the hotels in the red light district where boys were, and it was the best, kind of reunion that I've ever experienced of just seeing him and seeing me and seeing who is this crazy woman, and I can't believe she's come to hang out with me. Did he know that he would be an organization representing the organization that 5 years has held over about 1,000 boys? So it's really very cool that walked alongside with this.
Oh, awesome. Now, could you talk a little bit more about the boys? Because I think a lot of times we kind of limit other people's potential by what we see them doing in the moment. So you talked about how you started Urban Light because there was no other organization dedicating their time and their resources to these boys because they kind of thought they were a lost cause. And I think that's a mistake that so many of us make when we look at someone, not really seeing their potential, but seeing the pain or the pain of the actions that they're taking in the moment. So could you talk a little bit more about the boys and what are the things they've been able to achieve since working with you?
Yeah. So the achievement has been just really rewarding, really empowering, not just for them, but for myself to see the capacity for the boys we serve to heal, to move beyond the pain, the anger, the abuse. Because, the stories of abuse I've heard have just, no person should ever have to hear this, go through this, or experience this. And our boys are so incredibly resilient. They've been exposed to so much violence, so much abuse at a young age without a community to really support them and help them heal. And so it is a responsibility that Urban Light has to serve them, to really be amongst them. And so some of the most incredible achievements that we've seen are boys moving beyond bars, boys recognizing that finally they have hope, and finally they see the potential to get a job. For example, we have one boy who's a door-to-door salesman who is the most just ambitious and passionate person you've ever met, and who weekly tries to come on kitchen vendors, kitchen supplies, and pots and pans. But he saw the potential in himself to say, you know what, despite the amount of money that I get, this is a job that gives me dignity, this is a job that gives me hope. For them to make those decisions is just the biggest reward. One thing we recognize at Urban Light is that the change really has to come from the boys, and they have to want it and they have to seek it, and we're here just to be the vehicle to get them to that change.
Okay, that's awesome. Alex, this is like, it feels or it sounds like such a great responsibility that you have to the boys. What do you do on a regular basis? Like, what does your self-care consist of so that you can make sure that, you know, you're balanced and you're in the right state to help them?
Yeah, definitely. I think really it's all about community and the people you keep close. And I've been so lucky to have just incredible mentors and advisors. And, most people see the boys that we serve as disposable, as trash, as the worst of the worst. They're drug addicts, they're thieves, they're liars. They could offer absolutely no form of support. And yet, I know this to be the complete opposite. I know the boys that I've served and that have come to be family to me, to really be some of the greatest supporters that I've experienced in my life. The relationships that I have with the boys at Urban Light is deeper, more authentic, more incredible, and oftentimes I go to them with problems, with ideas, with suggestions, and they come back at me and they challenge me and they help me think and process. And so it's really been incredible to see over the years just how much we can support each other. So I do feel very blessed to have the boys at Urban Light be a great form of support and mentorship, but then also really the community that's taken me in Thailand, but also the DC community, my stateside peers, and recognizing that as global citizens, we all have a responsibility to be part of the solution. And I see that more and more happening. I see that over the 5 years, I can now really see a shift in perspective, a shift in desire to serve not just DC youth, but global youth, and recognizing that we all have that responsibility to be global citizens. So that's been a really huge support for me to see as well.
Oh, that's awesome. How often, like, how do you split your time? Do you live full time in Thailand?
I don't. So I have a crazy schedule where that kind of disrupts my life stateside. But it's really exciting because right now what I do is I'm here about 3 months at a time, and then I'm 3 months back in DC fundraising and doing awareness events and speaking at universities. Some of our most incredible supporters are university students, and they inspire me, and to see the power and the passion that they bring to service is really exciting. So I do a lot to engage that population. But yeah, so I'm in Thailand about 6 months out of the year, and it's home to me. It really I feel so lucky to have found a country where, my heart broke for it, but it's been just as generous to me, I feel as though.
Oh, awesome. So what are you working on with Urban Light now? What's new for you all?
So the social impact we're still trying to really thrive and see evolve is continuing with our work here in the red light district. So one of our key pillars is outreach. So what we do is we go to outreach about 3 to 4 times a night, 3 to 4 times a week, which is our time to really engage the boys that we find working in the bars. So that means having an orange juice with them, playing Connect 4 with them, providing them with health kits, providing them with a map to the center. For us, outreach is one of our key components. And it's something that we love to do because it's really important for us to let the boys know that they have an advocate within the community who will fight for them. We're big champions for them, and we want them to know that. So that's what happens during outreach. We also continue to offer education on site, transitional housing. Health is another key pillar for us, which, as you can imagine, most of these boys are exposed to all sorts of health issues. So that could be anything from HIV, tuberculosis, hepatitis, STIs, and STDs. So for them to know that there's a place where they can go to not just get tested, but to get treated and to get access to all of the drugs that they may need for treatment, that's huge for us. And so in that way, we really are disrupting the complacency that we tend to see within the community because of the fact that these are vulnerable boys mostly from the hill tribe areas, so outside the city. So Urban Light, really, we're aiming to be champions and give them the tools and the access to services that don't otherwise exist.
Okay, that sounds amazing. And if people want to donate or find out more about Urban Light, where can they go?
We have a website, which is www.urban-light.org, and it's a place where they can go and get some basic information. I would encourage them to check out our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter. There's, we always love to hear from different donors, different supporters. We're huge proponents of volunteers coming and donating their skills, whether it's photography or English teaching, or if you're a nurse or a doctor, there are ways for us to plug you into what we're doing. And so I'd really encourage people to see themselves and the skills that they have as incredible resources and assets to an organization like Urban Light. But yeah, we'd love to have the support and hear from people who are passionate about trafficking and the anti-trafficking movement and the work that we do in Thailand.
Okay, awesome. So definitely check out, the website, urbanlight.org, and follow what Alex is doing on the social media site. Thank you so much for being here, Alex. Did you have any last thoughts, anything you wanted to share regarding courage or faith or anything else you shared today?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to say thank you so much for this, Kiana, because I really do feel that we are all interconnected and we all have just a tremendous responsibility to be part of the solution. And I feel like the first way we can do this is really by having a conversation and blasting this issue out so that we can figure out what the solution is and how we can be a part of it. So I'm really excited to hear the feedback and to have you just be an ally with us as we walk through this together. So thank you.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you, too. Thank you as well. Thank you so much for being on the call.